Age of the Primes, Prima Prime, has a stupid name, they should have just kept him as Prima. But that aside, he's a good looking figure. Although I didn't really think that from the first images we saw. I know that I've ragged on about the renders in just about every single one of these Age of the Primes reviews, but Prima here looked particularly bad to my eye. Like that initial orange leak that we got way back when, I thought that the aesthetic looked a little bit confused and way far off anything we've gotten recently. There were hinges mounted on clear plastic that I just was not sure about, and then when we started getting renders and product displays, I just saw this ocean of white and grey and just bland. But now that I have him in hand, holy shit, I did not expect him to go this hard. So, let's take a look at him. The sculpted detail and proportions on this figure are actually damn near flawless, at least in my books. I've never been a big fan of the over-detailed aesthetic that we get on some figures. It was very prevalent during Siege, kinda took a dip towards more recent lines with Legacy and Studio Series 86. You know, they went for a much cleaner aesthetic. But this guy brings it back, but it actually seems to target and aim it. To be fair, I do think the shins are a little bit overly busy, but there's some depth to it. A lot like Age of the Prime's Air Raid. And I really appreciate that, it makes it a bit more digestible to me. And then the thighs take it a little bit easier on the detail, means that it's not too busy to the eye. But then the crotch, the chest, and the shoulders, they all just explode with all of this detail, but it all seems to point inwards. I very much see a lot of leading lines here that pull to very specific features, like the matrix chamber on his chest, the little circles on the shoulder pauldrons. Feels like it draws the eye a lot more than, say, Siege Shockwave did. And it kinda feels a bit more necessary considering that without this detail, there would not be a lot going on with this design. I will say though that the only parts that don't really seem to mesh with this aesthetic too well are the head and the backpack. The backpack is very, very clean, don't get me wrong, but it might be a little bit too clean. It's much in the same way as Soulless's backpack, where it's just a distractingly flat panel compared to all of this very, very well sculpted detail. And the head is kind of along the same lines, you know, the body is going for very much, I think, a Prime style aesthetic, but the head is just straight off of the G1 design from the cartoon. And yeah, the helmet is fantastic, but the face? I don't know, that feels a little bit too plain and simple and handsome, almost. I feel like he should look a little bit more aged, maybe. He's got like a reverse Kingdom Rodimus thing going on. You know, when all of the other Primes have these very distinctive face sculpts, this guy just looking like some fella in the helmet is a little distracting to me. That may be thanks in part to the face being unpainted, so it's just letting that white plastic shine, and that's not really taken too well to the rounded surfaces, but either way, it's not quite doing it for me. But you know, with that face problem aside, I really don't have many complaints about the sculpt of this guy. He's a very broad and bulky design, he's got great proportions, he's really big as well. I didn't expect him to be like a hair shorter than Megatronus. And those bland colours I was worried about, they're quite a bit better in person. The white plastic isn't the gleamiest shade I've ever seen, but it does have a slightly metallic quality, or at least a pearlescent. It feels like the clean equivalent to a bone white. But the good thing about it is it catches shadows really nicely, which helps all that sculpted detail shine. The grey is a good accent in colour for the couple of places where it shows up, gives him that much needed colour separation. And then the painted silver on the helmet and the little dots of blue all over him are very cleanly applied and just give him that extra nick that he needed. This is a very nice looking, very simple deco. Much in the same way as Megatronus, but I do think it's pulled off slightly better here. Just the painting quality is a lot better. Oh my god, these figures look so good together. But yeah, I am shocked by how much I like the look of Prima. I'd say I like it as much as Megatronus. That thing is just an absolute slab of death. This guy takes it in a slightly different direction, but he executes it just as well. Very much a fan. And the accessories do wonders for the look of him. He of course comes with the Star Saber, which seems to be a happy middle ground between the Fun Publications and IDW versions of the sword. I really like the look of it. It is maybe a little thin, but the sculpting on it and that clear blue plastic is just really, really nice. And it splits into 3 parts, with a hilt that's made of solid plastic, which is going to be a little bit less brittle, and then a matrix to plug on the side, and the blade that are both clear. Really, really like this matrix. It is just the standard Earthrise one, but I don't know, something about it being all silver is just really appealing to me. And don't get me wrong, I like the fact that you can store the sword on the back and stick the matrix in the chest for a little bit more of a reserved look, but this guy just looks so much better holding that blade. And trust me, he can wield that sword thanks to his pretty solid posing. The head is on one of the best ball joints I've ever seen. The shoulder pads can lever out to allow the arms to move out pretty standardly and go all the way around. He's got bicep swivels, really good elbows, wrist ball joints. I do wish there was maybe a cutout under the wrist to give him some flexion, but oh well. I just realized while recording this that you can untab the arm slightly and fake some flexion, which is nice. Not the cleanest looking thing in the world, but it works. There's a waist swivel. If you move the side skirts out of the way, you can move the hips out pretty standardly, and they can go forward and backwards on a shifting joint similar to Soulless, but with not quite as much range. There's thigh swivels. The knees have this awkward thoop that stops them from sitting straight, which is a little bit annoying, but other than that, they have pretty good range. The toes can point up a little bit, and you have really good pivots. The posing on this guy is a little above average in a really satisfying way. There's not really any specialty joints, but the way that things move out of the way to accommodate the posing, or the extra ranges that he has in various different areas, they just add so much to the experience, and it helps that the figure is incredibly solid. There is a little bit of rattliness because the wheels in the calves aren't pinned in, but that aside, this is dense and rigid. And the transformation is pretty good too. It's a pretty unique conversion. There's a lot of parts where it's kind of twisting around itself in very specific orders. I quite enjoy it, but there are some little critiques that I have. One that I expected to have is that there's a couple of hinges mounted into the clear windscreen, which, yikes. But in practice, that's very thick plastic. It's not showing any signs of stress. So far, I'm optimistic about it holding up. The main ones are just some things struggling to tab together. It's very difficult to get the leg sections tabbed into the body, and the wheels on the underside, they take a little bit of finessing to get in at the right angle so they click into place. But that aside, yeah, it's pretty simple, and it leaves you with a pretty nice kind of moon rover mode. That's how I interpret it, at least. Yes, I know it's a Cybertronian truck, but tell me this isn't a moon rover. But yeah, the whatever the f this thing is mode is not that bad. There is a little bit of a step. I find that a lot of the detail that you see from the robot mode that carries over here, it keeps all that detail, but then that backpack that I took issue with before still looks a little bit plain next to it. But you know, it does still have some pretty nice details. That vent on top, these top lights, the headlights, that screen which is split up into 5 sections? Yeah, 5. Sorry, I was doubting myself counting it. The front wheels being pinned are really nice, although I do wish the back wheels could have been pinned. That rattliness from the robot mode and the kind of holes that you see through to where the pins go through in this mode, not great. But I don't really have too many visual complaints about this mode, and it even has some functionality. You know, it rolls nicely, you can store the accessories on it, which is quite nice, although I do recommend you put the matrix in the chest before you transform it. And overall, solid alt mode, not perfect, the bit of a nothing thing. Kind of makes me wonder from the shape of it and the wheels and the orientations of everything if this is going to be retooled into a full Cybertron Optimus at some point. I think that could be quite neat. But yeah, if you can't tell, I like this thing. I have few to no real complaints about it. In terms of a Voyager class figure accomplishing what it's trying to do near perfectly, I don't think we've had this good an instance of it since like Animated Optimus, and if not, about Kingdom Cyclonus. Like, this is really, really good. Yeah, I would recommend this to just about every collector. I wish it had a slightly different color scheme, but that aside, mwah, perfection. And if you agree, then leave a like. If you disagree, then please tell me what you dislike about this figure down in the comments. And be sure to subscribe for the next one. Or maybe if you want a slightly earlier look at Red Alert, then you can hit up my Patreon. You know, $2.40 a month gets you access to all of my videos early, photo galleries, your name in the credits, the whole works. It's always an option. Right now though, I'm kinda craving a pastrami sandwich, so I'm gonna go grab that. Ciao.